on the economic changes in Russia, which is private enterprise, so that the longevity, the average longevity can drop 8 or 10 years since glasnost. And he'll tell you that while he's talking about privatization, we use the word freedom 3 or 4 times as if the two are equal.
Yeah.
In his article,
Or reform. How about the word reform?
Well, reform is more neutral, but freedom, as you know, is a wonderful thing that Americans all believe in.
Now here's another
freedom
thing.
to exploit.
Yes,
Yeah.
freedom. But here's another thing. People often say, well, how is a reporter forced to do something? I mean, is there an agenda? Before they write the story, are they called in and the man says, here's what you're going to write? Is there like a secret mission control in the bowels of the New York Times? And to which the answer is that there's no more quicker sense in any newspaper or TV program than what the limits are. Like every reporter or editor has a compass inside them which will tell them within the millionth of a degree how far they can go, which is usually not very far at all, of course. Or if you're on the Washington Post, you know what stupid editor, what's his name, Downey, or Mrs. Graham, or whoever the mucky is. The New York Times, exactly how far you can go. And so then you're in an era like in Afghanistan. Now everybody knew that the Mujahideen were a bunch of basically drug runners and fanatics and barbaric people, a lot of them. But they would never say that. Or the Contras. They all knew they were involved in drug running and they were financed by the CIA, but you couldn't exactly say that. And all the time people have this absolutely infinitesimally precise knowledge of where they can go on a story.
And if you step over the line, you're not going to be there too long. You can do
Kaboom.
it once, maybe.
Kaboom.
It's like people who join the police, like working class people. Some would. I actually heard a guard in a department store once tell me he was looking for people who were going to steal things, and I made some sort of half-snotty remark. And he said, "Well, these people are poor, and that's the only way they can get things." I don't think he was going to be on that job very long, and I think it's the same for people who join the police force. If they're dumb enough or not wise enough to know what their function is, and they find out what their function really is, which is to protect the private property of the rich, they're not going to last too long.
No.
They're either going to change or get out of the terrible work they're being asked to do.
Yeah, like my father said earlier, he was on the Times. Someone said he had an uncle who was actually one of the directors of the Times. And someone said to this uncle of my father's, well, who sets the policy of the London Times? And he said, this policy of the London Times is set by a committee that never meets. Which I guess these days they call that hegemonic discourse or something. Well, we could talk about the New York Press and we could talk about the Village Voice. Or we could talk about the New York Times, the New York Post.
And let's see, which column did you want to lose first? Let's see, you've already been kicked out of the Village Voice. Maybe they still publish my letters again, my songs occasionally.
Actually,
they're dull.
They're a bit dull, aren't they?
I'll tell you this, and Leonard Stern, are you listening? You're a multi-millionaire, almost a billionaire, but you seem to need the few $100,000 you get every year from the cigarette murderers, manufacturers who kill 400,000 people every year. You really need that money. You must need it terribly bad. And I wonder how bad you would need it if one of your relatives died of lung cancer. Well, I know a number of people who've died that way. The last one was the sister of a dear friend of mine. She suffered a year in the most excruciating agony. was in her early 50s. So Leonard,
It's giving Leonard too much, heart or something. I'm
Right.
sure he wouldn't care enough. He'd still want the money even if his wife died of, I don't think he would be impressed by that.
I think
argument.
they're all in a state of panic, but it really struck me actually when I was doing this article for the New York Press, the one we were talking about earlier. That there are these electronic magazines, Salon and Slate.
Yeah.
Well, of course, you probably don't read them, and I don't read them. But I do notice now. Well, and the New York Press people, they pulled some of the stuff down from the web. They're kind of making it. I notice people are now talking about them all the time. I don't know how many people read them electronically. But when you look at newspapers now, they are in a state of tremendous hysteria about the electronic threat.
well, that's good.
Particularly when you get outside the big three. I mean, there'll always have to be a New York Times, because how would the ruling class know what to think otherwise?
Right.
I mean, every guy in Washington, woman, fellow gets up and looks at the New York Times to remember how to think during the day.
Well, the president reads it, as someone said, to find out what the agenda of the
Yeah.
government should be.
Exactly. They all read the New York Times, and then the press office writes down, it says the New York Times said this morning. Or they get the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the LA Times, and the Wall Street Journal. But when you go across the country, I live in California, most of these papers now, they're basically a big weather map. If they've got any sense, they'll have a good astrology column, which is what people really want. A bit about sports, and then an enormously elaborate guide to what's on TV that day.
That's most important.
That's incredibly important.
That's USA Today.
That's USA
Looks
Today.
like-
Yeah, half of the print journalism talks about television
Yeah,
or computers.
all the time.
Yeah. But I hope you're not offering that as an excuse for Mr. Stern that he's afraid he's going to lose the $10 million he might have invested in The Voice.
Let's think about this. When I first came to The Voice in 1972, Dan Wolfe and Ed Fancher had just sold the controlling share, I think, to Carter Burton, now dead, who's the Vanderbilt heir, for I think $3 million, wasn't it? Something like that. Then along came Rupert Murdoch, and he bought The Voice as part of a package including New York Magazine for $15 million. Then along came Leonard Stern, the dog collar guy. Flea collars, that's what he meant.
No, he
Kitty
sells
litter.
pet food.
Flea collars.
Arts Mountain. He started with canary food.
Cat food,
Yeah.
kitty litter, all
He's
kinds
a
of
pet
stuff.
magnet.
Yeah, but didn't he sell the flea collar?
Probably.
Yeah.
Every pet in America is stewing in this toxic fog
Yeah, right.
given off by
And it's
Mildred
dangerous
copies of
to-
the Village
to
Voice and
infants,
the
too.
dog collar.
It's-
I wonder which is
it's
more toxic.
dangerous to
You could put a dog next to the dog collar and next to a copy of the Village Voice. See which killed him first.
And he's supposed to have bought that because he wanted to be invited to certain parties.
There you go. That's why they always buy these things. What is he otherwise? He's a little real estate magnate from New Jersey.
Right.
And
Big
then-
real estate.
Big now. Well, semi-big. And then he paid
He's
65.
almost a billionaire
Is he? That's nothing these days.
because he didn't
Everyone's
go
billionaire.
for those. He didn't go for those cheap bond stock tricks. During the '70s where those people got sent up. He stood in real estate. He was clever.
Oh.
Wait, how much did he pay for it though?
65 million, I think. So it went
Really?
from 2 million to 65 or 55, I forget which
Really?
million. In 72 was when the first one was. That was Dan and Ed. They must have sold out in 70, I think, because it had just happened when I got there. And then when did Stern buy The Voice? He bought The Voice in
I think before I got there, so before.
in the early 80s, maybe?
484.
No, I think Murdoch was still there. It must have been like 83, 84.
Yeah, I think when I got there, Stern was just coming in, or just so 84.
Well, the New York Press will take cigarette ads, I think,
If it pays for my salary, I'm all for
if
it.
they can get it.